Good evening, everyone. My name is Norville Barrington. I want to welcome you to Entrepreneurial Mondays, presented by the National Black MBA Metro New York chapter. And we want to thank bccelerator Advancing Black Entrepreneurship for sponsoring today's event. I'm here with the Equity Twins, Ryan and Ashton Clark. We're going to get into entrepreneurship into entrepreneurship, what drove them to go into real estate, and now what has them going into their new venture, which is Ticket Falcon. I'm going to ask everyone, if you have any questions, please use the chat feature. We're going to allow for live questions throughout this conversation. So please want to thank you so much for joining us today. National Black MBA Association is presenting a number of series across many of our chapters. This is just one of them, sponsored again by the Metro New York chapter. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary. And if you're not a member of the National Black MBA Association, we welcome you to join. And you can go to our website, which is NYBLACKMBA.org. And I'll give you more information, and we'll be able to send you a survey with information regarding National Black MBA and chapters in your local area. So we're going to get into a great conversation today. I want to thank everyone for joining today's conversation. I'm going to introduce the Equity Twins now. We're living in a time right now where most people are thinking about positioning about their careers and looking to pivot from either corporate to entrepreneurship. And we understand that from a timing perspective, this may be a good time to look at that. We see unemployment rates being low, but for many people who are either furloughed or either lost their jobs, or people who still currently have jobs right now in corporate America, this is an opportunity to think about what you can be looking at in terms of aligning your passion, your desires into something that can ultimately align to who you have been designed to be. And I think this conversation is going to bring out some key strategies, some key tips that will allow you to reposition yourself from entrepreneurship to entrepreneurship. So let me introduce our guest today, the Equity Twins. How are you doing today, guys?
Good. How are you? Well, can't complain.
Good. Thank you so much for joining. Now, I'm live from New York. These gentlemen are in Chicago, Illinois, and we have a lot to discuss. Let me first introduce Ryan Clark. Ryan is also the principal solution architect at Mr. SharePoint, a consultant firm that he founded, which really leverages some of the most unique internet portals, leveraging SharePoint and also Office 365. Ryan has a bachelor degree in accounting with a minor in technology and management from the University of Illinois. He's also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and 100 Black Men, of course, focusing on advancing the lives of many African-American men through a lot of educational opportunities in the greater Chicago area. Personal things about Ryan, which we'll probably get into, of course, joys, cooking, traveling, plays an instrument. I do not play any instruments. I wish I did. But this gentleman here is well-rounded, but also brings a lot of wealth in terms of entrepreneurship and also mentoring. So first, I want to welcome Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you all having me today.
Good. Now, you have a brother who's a twin, identical twin.
Looks just like you.
Now, it looks just like you. I want to introduce Ashton right now. Ashton is a storyteller. He also is a motivational speaker. You go to his website, which is ashtonspeaks.com, involved in technology, entrepreneurship, and has won many awards in entrepreneurship as well. He also has earned an undergrad degree in accounting and engineering from University of Illinois with his brother. He recently earned an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management, which is Northwestern University. Also a member of 100 Black Men in Chicago, and also as part of the Alpha Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, has been part of many groups such as MLT, and is also part of the National Black Data Process and Associates. One unique thing I want to mention about Ashton is he's also a member of the National Board of Directors of the National Black MBA, which is a rare opportunity where he actually is one of the youngest people who've actually held a seat on the national board. He also enjoys music, and is also the co-director of a youth choir in Chicago. So I want to welcome you to our conversation. How are you doing today, Ashton?
Thank you. I'm blessed and highly favored. So I'm glad to be here.
Good. So we're going to get right into our discussion. Please, if you have any questions, please use the chat feature. We will have an opportunity to ask live questions. So now, both of you, of course, your guys are identical twins, but what makes you guys, what are some of the things that make you connect in terms of, your personalities, things that you've done together, and how are you guys different from each other? We'll start with you, Ashton.
Yeah, well, so I think it's unique being a twin and being entrepreneurs in this case, because it's almost like a 24-hour operation. When I start, Ryan is able to finish, and that's very unique. Because in most instances with most businesses, you have one person that knows a lot of it and they have a difficult time handing it off. And so we have a unique situation where we can leverage each other to be able to do what we do, and that's start businesses and grow them.
Now, because now there's some misconception about twins in terms of people working together, in terms of partners. What are some things that are different that you've highlighted that is actually a strength that you can draw from?
Yeah, so one of the things is we're identical. So being identical, black and male, to me, I consider that rare. And with that being said, we get into it every now and again. And that's different than a lot of, I think most entrepreneurs that have partners, they get into it, but not like us. We're brothers. We grew up together. We fought each other when we were younger, and we still kind of do that today. But we do it in the sense to make our ideas better. And that's so important to us. And I think that's what would be a major difference between he and I being business partners versus someone else.
So now, Ryan, both of you went to the same school. Now, how was that experience, and what was different about the learning experience that either you went into and said, hey, I'm going to learn this from my brother while I'm in school, or some of the things that you said, you know what, I'm going to do it, take a different approach while you were in school?
Think about it. We basically had the same exact education. We were probably the only two persons at that school that had assigned seating, right? Our professors basically said, hey, Ryan, you must sit here. Ashton, you must sit there. And that was really what it was. But the ability for us to actually communicate, we talk about how some kids, as they're growing up, they have their own language. Ashton and I have the ability to speak to each other without actually being present. It's like I could feel things that happen to him and vice versa. So I think that allows us to have a unique level of learning, and we can actually kind of compete against each other. I think that's what's great about being twins, is that we always uplift each other. We challenge each other, but we always uplift.
Now, how was the foundation? You guys grew up in Chicago. Give us a little background in terms of growing up, and how did that play a role to you ultimately going and majoring in the fields that you did while you were in undergrads?
I think part of it is just due to our parents, right? I have a very enterprising mother, also a very enterprising father. So being able to see entrepreneurship happen at such a young age really sparked us. Another big thing that I like to mention is, we weren't often given an allowance as kids. We had to go out and earn our own allowance, if you will, right? So that's kind of why we started some businesses while we were younger and learned the value of a dollar.
Now, you guys went to school, University of Illinois. Now, at what point did you say, I had a plan for my skills in accounting? How did that change? And I know one of you focused more on the engineering side. So how did that change once you were in school and then once you graduated from undergrad?
Yeah, so we actually have the exact same degree. So one is
everything,
accounting,
okay.
And the other, yeah. So the other, at the undergrad level, so accounting, and then also technology management, which is the engineering side. So we were one of the very few that were actually able to go to both the College of Business and both the College of Engineering. And that was a great experience because that allowed us to be able to speak both languages. If you think about business, the fundamental business language is accounting. If you can't talk about your profit, your loss, your thing, the cash flows, all your assets and liabilities, if you can't have that conversation at a very high level, then you're really not understanding the dynamics that make business so unique. And so when we were in school, it was very important for us to understand that language, but also on the engineering side, because we needed to be able to talk to developers and folks that didn't necessarily understand the statement of cash flows, but they understood how to write in PHP or Python. And so that was very important to us at the college level. But once we graduated, we realized that, at least for me, I had an internship in New York and I was working for an accounting firm and I was doing audit. To be honest with you, that just was not my thing. All right. I was out here with a little calculator. If you remember Texas Instruments, that's what I used. And I was ticking and tying numbers. And I said, I can't do it. That just wasn't for me. But it gave me an eye-opening perspective on what it means to be audited. And so as soon as we graduated, I realized, no, I need to go into consulting, be able to do some other things and learn other companies really quickly, because at the end of the day, that would help me from an entrepreneurship perspective.
Now let's stay on that. So now you get from the internship and now you go into the consulting field. Now, what are some things that you learned initially, hit the ground running, that opened your eyes to, hey, maybe I need to shift, maybe I need to build more skills here? Can you talk about that experience as a consultant?
Yeah, one of the unique things for me when I was in consulting is that I was C-level facing. So I was with the executive, the CEO, the president, the CFO. And what I realized is that could be me. Really, that could be me. But the key difference is that, I mean, they were a little bit older, but that could be me. And so where my mind started to shift is that in order for me to be able to be the executive of whether it's my own company or let's say a Fortune 100 company, is for me to understand every single aspect of that company, whether it be accounting, accounts payable, the supply chain, the engineering side, but understand all of that. And one of the best ways to do that is through it's through consulting. And the reason why I bring that up is because I had 6 clients. I flew all over the United States in different industries. And so my network grew from these different companies. My experiences were expanded, and that gave me a whole perspective on what it means to run different types of businesses. So that was a worthwhile 2.5 years. Yes, I only lasted 2.5 years because a year and a half of flying back and forth from San Francisco wore me out. But what's interesting is that Ryan has a client in the St. Louis area, and he's been going back and forth there for a year and a half, and he's still going strong.
So now, Ryan, during this time, what was your take going through the time that you graduated, and what was the opportunity where you said, you know what, we need to pause, we need to stop, and what was that moment for you, for both of you? Ryan can speak to that.
The pause and stop. I mean, for me, honestly, I figured a chance for me to pause and stop was when I realized that we were paying rent. We can get into the real estate a little bit deeper as well. We were paying rent to a company for our years that we stayed there in school. And I remember walking away from the University of Illinois saying, what did I have from that? I mean, I paid my rent to somebody else, but I didn't walk away with anything tangible. I mean, sure, I had a place to stay, but I didn't earn any equity, hence the name Equity Twins, right? We want to gain equity in this world. So basically, I remember talking to Ashton and saying, hey, man, you know, we need to eventually start investing in real estate so we can actually start transferring our funds that may be in a bank account into physical real estate that can appreciate over time.
So now let's stay on the real estate side. So now let's talk about investments or money that you had saved up. Let's start back where your capital came from, and let's walk us through that process, if you can do that.
Yeah, so I'll do that at a high level. So one thing I want to add is that my mother was very influential. I remember when I was in consulting and Ryan was working somewhere in Chicago, and she said, and basically emphasized what Ryan said, is that now is the time for you to invest in real estate. And this happened around 2012. So if you think about it, the bubble bursted in real estate some years prior. And so we were coming into the market at a time where foreclosures were still extremely strong. I mean, you can think about, hundreds, if not thousands of foreclosures were flooding the market every single day. So from a capital perspective, to give you more insight, when we had our first business in college, in high school, it was called Ludakicks.com. It was our shoe company. And we did fairly well for ourselves at the time as 15, 16 years old. But one of the things that our parents taught us is to save our money. So we saved just about everything we had from that company, and we put it into a money market account through Ameriprise at the time. And so when it became time in 2012 or so for us to invest in real estate, we pulled a little bit of that money out to help us fund a down payment for our first mortgage on our first investment property. Long story short, we did that. It was a great experience. And then the second house came. Well, we got a little bit smarter. We started getting these offers in the mail from credit card companies stating 0% interest for balance transfers for anywhere between 24 to 36 months. And we said, so we can get a direct deposit, cash in our bank account to then go to a closing and pay off a house. And that's exactly what we did. So I would get a balance transfer. Ryan would get a balance transfer. We'd take that cash. We would then go to the closing with that cash, and we had the house. We then take whatever's left over, use it to fix it up, hold on to the house for a little bit, save our cash, and then we go on to the next one by getting a new balance transfer. And that's how we started getting the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth house.
Mm-hmm. So now, let's talk about the planning. Now, most people get stuck and bogged down with business planning. So can you just walk us through the balance between actually doing the work and actually planning things out?
Yeah, I think for us, oftentimes people ask us, did you guys ever have a business plan? We never really did. We actually took the other side of the fence here. And, you know, when you talk about entrepreneurship, you got to talk about execution. There is no entrepreneurship without execution. A lot of people have ideas and thoughts all day long, but they don't execute them and bring them to fruition, right? So that's what we do. So basically, for us to have an idea, a concept, and actually breed it, or, you know, actually grow it into something that is actually successful takes a lot of time and effort. We could have written a lot of stuff down on paper, but at the time we didn't really need to do that because we were actually acting upon what we wanted to do.
Now, talk about the relationship with now lenders. In most cases, having strong relationships with people within the financial industry, especially when it comes to loan officers, are important. Now, was that a barrier for you, or was a strategy of these balance transfers and actually using the liquid cash that you did have in order to execute some of these plans?
An absolute barrier.
Oh, go ahead.
If I may ask, an absolute barrier, because after you get your first property, right, your investment property, you have to put a down payment of about 20%, 25%. So the higher the cost of the house, the more amount of capital you have to put down. And when we did the math, you know, a mortgage is supposed to last with you for basically the rest of your life, right? So if we're going to have a successful, you know, investing in real estate business, how can we eliminate the need for a mortgage? Well, we got to figure out a way to get the money on our own, because cash is king in this world, right? So we can get the money on our own. We don't have to pay interest to anybody else. Now, the thing about the balance transfer is, Ashton mentioned you might have like 0% interest for like 24 months. What he didn't mention was that they'll charge you like 3% or whatever or 3% for a one-time fee of whatever you borrow, right? So like if you borrow like, you know, $1,000, you know, 3% of that would be going down to pay the cost to actually get the balance transfer. But the benefit of it is that if you pay down the balance transfer 100% before that 24-month or 36-month period, you don't owe anything else. You've eliminated a mortgage if you can do that for the amount of money that you borrow.
But two more things I want to add to that, if you don't mind, just so I can let folks know about this. So there were a couple of instances, if we're going to be completely honest here, we didn't almost pay off that balance transfer. We may have had like $10,000 left. Well, let me tell you what we did. We actually went to two different competing banks and had balance transfers from both of them. So basically, we were able to take one balance transfer and then put it on the other bank's offer for us. And so that extended us out again another 24 months. But one thing I want to add outside of balance transfers is that still to this day, we've had challenges going to a general bank and getting a home equity loan or a revolving line of credit on our property. And mind you, all of our properties as of 2 weeks ago are 100% paid off. We had one mortgage. We doubled down on that mortgage and paid that mortgage off in 7 years. So that's gone. That's off of our books. But the issue is that even though we have all of this equity, banks will still not lend to us, but they'll check your credit score and then tell you after the fact, oh, we don't believe in lending to real estate companies because it's risky. And my take on that as well, it's only risky if folks don't own it. We own 100% of our real estate. And so we can borrow 80% against that, then there's something to that. But we've had challenges.
Now, in New York, we talk a lot about the stimulus package and breaking it down. And we also looked at opportunities in terms of for our members to access lines of credit. And it's been a challenge in most cases. So now you guys have been able to overcome that, let's say, in the past. So let's just stay on that for a moment. What recommendations would you have for people in this current climate if they're looking at opportunities for either trying to get loans or even trying to get into new spaces? Let's say, for example, real estate.
I think what's most important is that you have to stay persistent. A lot of times, you know, we might try one thing or try something one time, it doesn't work out, we kind of give up. At the end of the day, you can't give up. You got to keep going forward, because guess what? If you don't go forward, somebody else will. And in order to prevent that from happening, you just got to keep trying. And if one person or one company says no, doesn't mean that the next person or next company will say no. You know, it's kind of like sales, right? We go out and try to sell things that we offer. Not everybody's going to want to make a purchase, but at some point, at some time, somebody will. Same thing goes for jumping into a new industry or, you know, doing something new with a new business. Same principle applies.
Now the industry is booming. You guys are doing well in terms of real estate. So now have you guys already left your full-time jobs? Are you guys doing this full-time? Set that stage for everyone.
Go ahead, Ashton.
Go ahead, Ryan. Tell them about you. Okay. All right. Okay. So how do I begin? So I was in corporate for a while. I left for a little bit. Then we started Ticket Falcon, which we'll get into a little bit later. And then I went back into corporate, right? So there's an opportunity. So networking, and this is a quote that I say fairly often, but it's networking is one letter away from not working. I'll let that resonate with the people. Networking is one letter away from not working. And so I am a networker, a connector. That is what I do. And so there was an opportunity for me to go back into corporate in the media space. And I took that opportunity primarily because media was not my niche. I understood technology, I understood accounting, engineering, all of that, but media was a completely new world for me. And I had an opportunity to go in there and basically bring my perspective to help elevate. And so, yes, I have a day job, but entrepreneurship is something that I do outside of that. So for those that have day jobs, let's say you work from 8 to 5. Well, at 5:30, I can do what I want. And so that's how entrepreneurship comes into play.
Now, Ryan, where were you in this journey?
I mean, we're a family, right? So I can keep it real. I can keep it real right now.
Yes, keep it real. Absolutely.
So my last corporate job, I was in sales. And I'm not going to lie, I did my thing. I hit my targets, getting business, did everything that I thought I could possibly do. But here's where things went sour. I got laid off, and I didn't feel like I had a valid reason for being laid off, especially as I was doing everything that I thought that I was supposed to be doing. I got good recommendations and good reviews when performance reviews were coming around, but still I got let go. And so at that time I was feeling very discouraged. Like, why am I being let go if I did everything I possibly think I could do to be successful? And I realized at that point in time, and this might not be for everybody, but this is the way that I felt, is that I was a resource that could be somewhat replaced, right? Because if they let me go, eventually they're going to get somebody else at some point. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that I could invest my time into a corporation and not necessarily feel that, I'd have the same respect back. They want to give, people want to give, or companies want to expect that people give a 2 weeks to 3 weeks notice, but they can let you go in a minute, right? I learned it the hard way. So instead of me sulking and being sad for months or a year on end, after I had to go and get unemployment, something happened in my entire being. I said, you know what? Let me not be sad. Let me make something of this. And I started my own company, and that's what I did with Mr. SharePoint, which is part of the reason why I'm able to travel, like Ashton said, almost every week, pre-COVID-19.
So let's talk about that. Let's stay right there talk about SharePoint and talk about the businesses that you've helped, what you've learned in that process. And then we're going to get into Ticket Falcon because I'm really intrigued about Ticket Falcon. But let's talk about SharePoint for a moment.
Sure. So basically what I do is, so SharePoint, if you don't know, is a collaboration and document management tool by Microsoft. Office 365 is Microsoft's digital productivity suite, Word, Excel, all that stuff online. So I found a niche, and this is what's important about entrepreneurship. If you could find a niche, and remember these two words, the word niche and exploit. If you could find a niche and exploit that niche, you can actually become very successful. So what I found is that there weren't too many people that looked like me, came from a similar background as me, working in the SharePoint space or Office 365 space. So I said, well, why not give it a try? So I started freelancing. And the interesting thing was is that I kind of started doing it before I got laid off. I was just doing it, like Ashton said, after hours. So I always had something going on. But then once I realized, once I got my first client, and this is where the aha moment happened, I said, I can get 100 more. Right. So now, as an individual, I felt like, after I got laid off, my positioning point was somebody can pay X number of dollars an hour to deal with a bigger firm that has overhead, right? An additional cost. It's just me. I don't have overhead, so I can charge a lower cost to those companies, still be high enough to make more than I did make when I was in my corporate job. And what I found was that if I can give that bait, would companies be able to bite that bait? And they did. So I work with Fortune 100 companies, basically companies of all sizes all across the world. It's a true blessing.
So before we get into Ticket Falcon, let me just ask, is there any questions from the audience? And we're going to keep the conversation focused on tips that you've learned, questions regarding corporations in terms of entrepreneurship into entrepreneurship before we get into Ticket Falcon. Now, feel free to unmute yourself and we'll get your question up. All right, we'll keep going for now. Again, if you do have any questions in the future, please use the chat feature and we'll get you towards the end of this conversation. So now we're in the space now. You guys are doing well for yourself. You went into media, Ashton, you went into media. So let's talk about Ticket Falcon. Let's set the stage in terms of what the event industry, or the ticketing industry is looking at that particular time.
Yeah, so pre-COVID, you have events everywhere. In Chicago, we hold in on the winter so we can do our thing in the summer. And so now COVID, all of us are inside. We don't know what to do with ourselves. But the events industry hit a brick wall. And so I'll get to that in a second. But in terms of pre-COVID-19, I mean, everybody was throwing events and hosting their events online. But one of the things that we noticed is that there really weren't many, if any, platforms that were for us by us, right? And if you think about it, I am a firm believer of investing in companies that have diverse representation at the board level and also at the leadership level. And I didn't see that. And to kind of give you more history regarding how Ticket Falcon was started, I was responsible for all things ticketing with my family reunion. Okay, I'm gonna tell you this. Our family reunion sees over 500 people every 2 years. I kid you not. And so I said, hey, I'll do the ticketing. And so I had to choose between two solutions. I opted not to choose one because it was super expensive and they had no diversity on their board. And I said, forget that. And then I opted to use a website building tool because they had an event module. Long story short, with all the folks that actually came to that reunion, I could not get individualized information on who bought what, when, and where. And so every time they placed an order, it would be a family of 6. I had to go in there and add it to my auxiliary spreadsheet to keep track of everything. And so I was spending 5, 6, 7 hours a week because orders were coming in. Our family wanted to get together, and I had to manage that. And so I got really, really frustrated. I spoke to my brother. And I said, hey, guy, we need to do something about this. He's like, what do you want to do? I said, why don't we create our own ticketing platform? He's like, what do you mean? Well, think about it. Most of the ticketing platforms that are out there hold event organizers' funds until after the event has ended. For a family reunion like ours, that won't work. Our family likes to eat, and we need to be able to pay that catering budget in advance.
Right.
And so we couldn't use those platforms. But Ticket Falcon, we decided to build it so that we were giving instant payouts. Instant. So as soon as an attendee purchases a ticket, that event organizer gets their money instantly. That's the value. The second point I'll tell you is, if you think of other platforms in comparison to ours, we allow our event organizers to own the attendee data they collect. We were not on board with having a third party basically have control over how you can use your own data. So for us, we said we're going to give instant payouts, and we're going to allow our event organizers to own the attendee data they collect. And then finally, it was all about cost. We didn't create Ticket Falcon to be ridiculously expensive. We wanted to be an inexpensive platform to enable event organizers to sell tickets to their events online. That's a high level view of how we started it, but that's the essence of Ticket Falcon.
So now, Ryan, you're hearing this. What's going through your mind?
You know, because we talk about ideas all the time. I'm like, man, there's a whole bunch of other websites out there. I mean, what makes you think we can actually make a dent in this space? And essentially, you know, Ashton was very adamant about this. So when my brother is very adamant about something, I end up saying, you know what, if he's passionate and motivated about it, I'm going to be passionate and motivated about it as well. Because when we put our heads together as one, I mean, you know, we actually make things that are actually tangible and working. And that's kind of what we created here as well.
So let's walk through let's go through some success stories. Now, you went to this family reunion, you had this experience, and for most entrepreneurs, they talk about a problem that they're currently going through, and now there's an opportunity. So now let's walk us through the resources outside of you two in terms of getting other people on board, and what did it take in terms of other parties to make this dream a reality or this opportunity a reality?
I mean, the major thing is having customers. And see, one of the most difficult things is when there are already existing platforms, getting people to convert. That is always one of the most difficult things. But what I realize about most individuals outside of existing companies, people tend to invest in people they like and that they trust. And so one of the things that my brother and I have done very well is build a very strong network of people who believe in us, who want to see what we're doing, and just would overall like to just hang with us. I mean, think about it. I mean, if I'm going to be partnering with a company, I want to at least like the people that I'm going to be partnering with. And so that's kind of like who we are and how we basically created our company. But one of the things is that it's just difficult convincing people to do that. So what we did is we spent a lot of time trying to figure out who could be our first customers. Who in our network could we go after and basically say, hey, would you give us a try? And what I'll tell you is building a ticketing platform like we have is ridiculously complicated. Why, you ask? You have different time zones. You have different types of currency. We're giving that currency to the event organizers in real time, right? All these different things that make it so complicated that the barriers to entry to do this, in my opinion, are a lot higher than one would think. Because you're giving people PDF tickets, confirmations. We have apps. I mean, and I'll tell you, Creating an app on Android and iPhone is not the easiest thing when it comes to sending real-time information that's custom. And so for that, we were able to put a MVP in place, a product that is almost, it's not fully complete, but it's a minimal viable product. And that's exactly what we did. And we started getting people testing it. And the great thing about it is that people were giving us real-time feedback. And that feedback was invaluable because we were able to take that feedback and do something with it. And what I realized is that the individuals that were, in essence, rocking with us on day one are the ones that are still rolling with us today, because they saw where we were initially versus where we are today. And they're not the same thing. I will tell you right now, when we first put out Ticket Falcon, I was like, well, would you look at this? We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go, but I'll tell you, God is good. And let me tell you, and I know I'm going on a little rant here, but I think there are some entrepreneurs that need to hear this. There are going to be some times when you have an idea and people are laughing at your name. And I'm going to tell you, or I'm not going to name any names, but she's in my family. She gave birth to me. My mom, okay? Mom, you're probably young, all right? But I had a name. I had come up with a name. I'm going to tell y'all what it is because I still own the domain name. I was like, we're going to call this company TixBoss, TIXBOSS.com. She was like, I don't think so. That is horrible. But it's that feedback that my mom in this case gave me every day she saw me, because that allowed me to say, you know what, if she keeps saying this, there has to be some validity. But then you fast forward, we started playing with other names, and you have to have people in your circle who support you, whether it be my fiance, to Ryan's girlfriend, to our family members, right? But we had people in our circle that helped us to brainstorm. And that's when we came up with Ticket and Falcon. Ticket and Falcon are two very popular words, but we were able to get ticketfalcon.com, .net. And then furthermore, I will tell you one more influential person who's also on this Skype or Zoom call right now, Norm. I told you earlier, he was Mr. MBA, but he pushed me and my brother, true story. He said, you all have to get a trademark. In the beginning, I was like, nah, I'm good. No one's going to be messing with us. We own the .com. So what? He was like, no, you have to get the trademark for Equity Twins and for Ticket Falcon. Now, fortunately, through our brotherhood within Alpha Phi Alpha, we have a brother named John Kendall. John Kendall, based in Chicago, is a fantastic trademark attorney. And so he came through for us because we were able to get both trademarks. And I'll stop there.
No, I think what you touched on is very important. And it goes to your network and the power of your network. Ryan, you and your brother, of course, grew up together, someone that you can trust, bounce ideas. There's struggles, but the struggles all in love and all in building. What advice would you give to people in terms of individuals who have ideas, but they don't know who to trust? They don't want to give out their information. They don't know who to leverage. What advice would you give for people who are thinking about launching something but don't know who to trust, and or people who don't have a network of people at all?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's okay to put a feeler out there, right? To be able to, meet people, but not just do it via email. I know right now we're not meeting in person and stuff like that, but having Zoom calls or Skype calls or whatever you might want to call it, and actually talk to somebody beyond just business. You want to be able to relate to somebody beyond the business level, because like Ashton mentioned, and even in sales, right? A lot of people don't buy things because they want to buy it. They also buy it because they like the person they're buying from, and so forth and so on. So anybody that we partnered with, we talk to them beyond just business, conversation. It's deeper than that. And one other point that I want to mention, and if people are taking notes, I would appreciate if you wrote this down. If you're going to have a business and your business is focused on any type of technology, and you're a founder or owner in that business, but you don't have any technical capability and understand the technology they're working with, you're doing yourself a disservice. Why, you might ask? Let's say you have a website that you're building, or you're having somebody else build, and something goes wrong, and you got to find a way to troubleshoot it, but you can't understand any of the code base that they've built. That's a big problem. So I guess what I'm saying is that you should try to understand the technology that you're going to leverage when you're building out a technical-based solution.
So Tone is on our chat line. She's on our call. Thank you, Tone, for joining us. She has a question. So what are some of the mistakes you wish you could have avoided? So I'll start there.
That is a very, very good question. I think, so I'm going to go back to what Ryan said. So both of us are technical, but when we started a company, and it was almost similar to what we have today with Ticket Falcon, but slightly different. And one of the mistakes that we made is that we actually ended up hiring a programming team overseas to build our application. And we were in college at the time. We were ending up sending them money and they were building it. But we were so inundated with college and all the stuff that comes with that we weren't checking their code. But we kept paying them and helping them to fix the bugs that were in the system. Suffice it to say, we looked at the code one day and we're like, oh my gosh, I could have wrote better code than this. And this is the reason why this system doesn't work the way in which we intended. But the thing about it is that we already paid for the lack of work that got us to this point. So long story short, we lost a tremendous amount of money. And what Ryan said is so key. When it comes to on the technical side, you need to have folks in your network that you can lean on. You need to do it on the legal side. I mean, you need to have a good lawyer. You need to have a good accountant. You need to understand your finance. You need to have a good developer, a good designer. You need all of that at your arsenal, because the thing you don't want to do is be in a situation where, let's say something's going on the legal side and you don't have a good attorney, or you're trying to get a trademark and you're trying to figure out who to talk to and you don't know if you can trust this lawyer or not. And it's like, you don't have time for that. You need somebody that you can trust that can handle the various aspects of your business. So it takes the pressure off of you, because the entrepreneurs, we need to be thinking about how to, one, create our business and how to grow it. But thirdly, by partnering with third parties to help us bring it all together.
So Ryan, I'll throw this question to you. So now, post-COVID, how has your entrepreneurship, well, your corporate experience going to play into how you build out, the platform in your future businesses post-COVID?
Yeah, I think it's really about relationship building. We're in a time right now where relationship building, it was always critical, but it's extremely critical now because you don't have that physical presence. So for us to be able to build our business, we've got to be able to make connections. So leveraging things like LinkedIn, you could be Facebook and so forth and so on, but actually building connections and building friendships along the way. And I think also it's important to note that if you walk in your purpose, there should be no question from anybody about whatever you're doing. And I find that if you're actually enjoying what you're doing and that's purposeful, the people will come, the customers will come along, your clients will be there. You just have to continue to make that focus. And don't get distracted out there either. Oftentimes we don't walk by faith, right? We basically kind of look at what we see in the world and that's what we go off of. But there's greater things out there. You just got to stay focused with it.
So now you talked about the power of faith and you talked about your purpose. So now we have, you have a real estate business. You have, now you have a new addition to your portfolio, which is Ticket Falcon. So going through the corporate route, did you see yourself in this position right now?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I did not see myself in this position. I was getting my thoughts straight because I had a couple of things going on. I just want to keep it real again. I have actually never had a promotion. You want to know why I probably never had a promotion? Because I got laid off and didn't get a chance to get one. But my point that I'm saying that is this, is that sometimes you got to make your own opportunity. And one thing I like to say, and this might be a little bit of tangent, is when you start your own business, you can pretty much call yourself whatever you want, right? Think about it. I didn't go out and get an MBA like my brother. And I always said, well, I don't have any letters or anything after my name, but I can call myself a CEO. See where I'm going with that? You get creative, so now I don't have to worry about being in corporate to get that promotion, because if I did go back to corporate now, they're going to look to see what I've been doing and how long I've been doing it for and how successful it may have been. And I think it just has propelled me and put me on a different level than I was before.
So now, Ryan, I also have to ask you this. Now, going through this process, how have you been able to deal with the industry noise? You shouldn't be doing anything online. You shouldn't, you should probably invest in different other industries. And this goes for you too, Ashton. How do you look at the industry itself and then say, well, maybe we shouldn't do this, or maybe we should do this, especially as it relates to Ticket Falcon?
Well, I'll say this real quick. So think about like if from a real estate or like a real estate perspective, right? You might have physical real estate. You can also have digital real estate. One of the things that we've learned at a very early age is how to take advantage of passive income. Sure, you have passive income by buying a house, renting it out, and collecting those rents, right? But you can also have passive income by having a website that you may initially invest money in or time or effort, but you can generate sales or recurring revenue even by the time you wake up. You can go to sleep and have X amount of dollars in your bank account by the time you wake up. So I don't necessarily think that investing in digital real estate, like websites and stuff like that, is a bad idea. It's just there's a whole lot of noise out there, because back when we started this when we were 16, some years ago, not going to date ourselves, there weren't as many websites out there. So for us to have a successful business at that time, it's easy. It's a lot harder now, but like I said, if you have purpose and you're driven, you can easily be one of a few instead of being one of out of millions. How do you do that? I like to say we'd like to take an unconventional route. Just because somebody says you should do something like something, or just because somebody says you can do something a specific way doesn't mean you have to. Do it the way you feel is best for you.
Yeah, and to add to that real quick. Oh, go ahead.
No, sure, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so even when we started Ticket Falcon or going back to Ludacris, I mean, we have stories for days about the individuals that said, oh, you can't do this. You'll never be successful. There are so many other shoe companies or so many other event management platforms. And I'll tell you, so what? I mean, who said competition is a bad thing? Think about all the airlines or car companies or hotels. There's more than one, right? Because competition brings about something just through nature, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to elevate. And so my brother and I were always trying to elevate, one, by living in our purpose, but always trying to elevate ourselves and the folks around us. And if you think about it, that's where this notion of catalyst for change comes from. What that means is that we can be in an environment that could be somewhat negative, but we can go and make that environment positive without ourselves negatively being impacted. And that is the key. And so when we had all these individuals that will say to us, oh, Ticket Falcon, you can't do this. You can't get the trademark. You guys are just two black brothers out of Chicago. No one's going to work with you. Okay. All right. That's what you think. But I'm still going to be working on this at night because this is what I'm passionate about. And if you work at something long enough, it could be 3 months. It could be 6 years. And you keep evolving your idea, at some point, something will pop. But the key is that you have to be able to evolve, and that's what we've done with Ticket Falcon and Equity Twins, and what Ryan has done with Mr. SharePoint, is that we block out this noise, because you're going to always have these haters that they live by seeing other people hurt. That's just what they do. Internet trolls, whatever you want to call it. And it's like, I look at that and I feel sad for them, but that stuff energizes me. Tell me I can't do something, because I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it well. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we are.
Now, we're going to get to some more questions from the chat line. There is a personal question and this is a very selfish question. So mentorship is very, very important. As an entrepreneur, you both of you have been through, journeys in life, and you continue to go through journeys of lessons learned, good foundation, good family foundation, part of great organizations. Can you talk about the mentorship role that now leveraging these companies and your experience, how that has had an impact to how you have now shared this information and these lessons learned in Chicago and nationwide?
I mean, for me, it's more so about, we talked about people that you can trust. Close family members of ours have been really close confidants that we could trust and actually talk about things that are happening, because a lot of times we get discouraged out here. And sometimes it's very hard to go out and actually have somebody you could trust to talk to. Sometimes all it takes is a conversation, right? Part of my issue has been, we went to a predominantly white institution, for our undergraduate experiences. And so basically we were one of a few. We were the only two black students that were in both the business and engineering school. So you can imagine there might be things that we deal with, but how do we get over these hurdles? We get over the hurdles by not only pushing through them, but we got to be able to talk to somebody about it. So I always remember after I graduated, even working downtown in Chicago, I might be the only black person walking down the street, going to work. So that's part of the reason why, you hear us, joining and being active in the 100 Black Men of Chicago or Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, because now we're around like-minded individuals that look like us, right? That have same experiences as us, and we're able to kind of talk back and forth with one another. And I think that's very important.
Now, we do have a question in the chat line, and this has to do with, approach in marketing. So what do you say your approach to marketing is? I know you talked about relationships. Is that the only approach, or what's the main approach that has led to your success? Is it truly just the networking?
I'll be honest. I mean, that is a fantastic question. See, I think so a lot of folks just assume that you can just go on to Facebook or Google or LinkedIn and just put on an ad and just do that. And that may work in some industries, but what I've realized is that is an easy way to spend capital, Because if you don't get out and talk to people, how will you even know what the market? And so what we found in our business specifically, whether it be real estate or ticketing, is that having that one-to-one conversation with somebody is extremely valuable. Now, we can generate leads through advertising on various websites, which is great. And that worked extremely well on our shoe website, by the way. Us putting banner ads on other websites, we got a tremendous amount of traffic that way. But when it comes to event organizers, think about it this way. Not every event organizer is going to have an event the day you talk to them. Not every event organizer is going to have an event the day they see your ad. But one thing they'll notice is that if I were to get an opportunity to speak to an event organizer and I'm talking to them about everything outside of events, how's your family? How's everything going within COVID-19? I hope everything's well. And we're just having a conversation, getting to know each other. And then somehow we end up talking about events. And what tends to happen, they're like, you know what? I like what you guys are doing, and I want to be a part of that. So the next time we host an event is going to be on your platform. And that's the value, but that'll only last you so long. But the value of that is that now we're getting long-lasting relationships with other event organizers who can share our platform within their network. And so if you think about it, it's almost magnetic in a sense, because if people do what other people around them are doing, you can see people do what other people around them are doing. And so if my brother came to me and he said, Ashton, you need to get this specific device because it just works wonders. Okay, done. Because his insight is going to provide more intel for me than any ad period. And that's what we've been doing.
So Ryan, you talked about, your network and, filling out a number of different options in terms of what products, solutions you should offer. But what was that moment where you said, I'm ready to release it? What was that gut moment? We have to release this.
I mean, we were just seeing other events other events happening, leveraging other platforms. So the longer and longer we wait, the less opportunity we're going to actually experience. And so at some point I said to Ashton, hey man, we got to launch this. I know it's not perfect, but we actually have a good thing going because if there's an issue, we can fix it very quickly. Unlike some of these larger companies that may have bureaucracies, we don't have that. So if our customers come to us and say, hey, this isn't working or this is broken, we fix it as fast as we humanly possibly can. And by the time we launched it, we noticed that we did a few events and we sold out those events. We've had events that have had close to 1,500 tickets being sold where they were using platforms, that existed before that have influxes of millions of dollars of capital. So to see that we could do that without having to have millions of dollars, I mean, it just led me to believe that we got something that's working here.
So monthly, what does your traffic look like on your website? And what are some things that you're looking to add on in the future, if you could speak to that?
Yeah, so it depends on the website, right? So, I mean, and it depends on the event going on. So for us, so I put it about this way, we can get several thousand event organizers on our website in a month. And that's great. Not everybody's going to convert, but then you get way more attendees, right? Because the event organizers through our platform are basically marketing their events and getting attendees to come to our website. And so the whole idea is that we have almost a three-tiered marketplace. We have us as Ticket Falcon, we have event organizers, and then we have attendees. And so it ebbs and flows depending on the events that we have on our platform. And so that's one metric and one way to look at it. But the way we're looking at it now is that, especially with COVID-19, is that a lot of people aren't throwing in-person events anymore. They just can't. And so now we have to figure out how do we shift our business to be able to provide tools to people to still host events online. Because we're not going to ever put out any type of messaging that says, oh, yeah, you can still have in-person events. We'll support you. No, we're not about that. No, halt your in-person events, either postpone them, cancel them, and we'll walk you through how to do that on our platform, or we will help you convert it online. Because the content that you can provide to people while they need it the most is invaluable. And so the traffic ebbs and flows, but I will tell you, I'm having more conversations with people now than I was when COVID wasn't even in existence.
And how does each event get optimized based on local searches?
So we have somebody very technical, very, very good. So when you think about major search engines, whether they be Google or Bing or even Yahoo to a certain degree, I mean, all of them are optimized. So our pages are indexed in most of these search engines by the way that we have SEO or search engine optimization oriented on each of the pages. And so the way that it works is that Google will crawl our website at some point in time, but they're also crawling each individual event page. And so the way that we have our meta tags set up and all the different information that Google needs as part of its algorithm to rank pages is why you'll find events on our platform being ranked. And so the great thing about our platform is that we are focused, and I want to be crystal clear about this. We are focused on small to medium-sized events. Those are events with less than 2,000 people. That has just been our sweet spot. And so with that being said, we are dealing with the family reunions. We're dealing with associations who, one, may have never used an online platform. And so when they see that by being on our website, they can, in most instances, even be on our homepage, now they're getting a higher level of visibility even outside of search engines. Because what happens is that with a lot of websites, you have something called a bounce rate. And so that's what happens when someone views your page and then they leave at some point in time with not even consuming any content. And that happens with just about any website, period. But with ours, we're providing our event organizers with the relevant information so that their attendees will actually stay, figure out what the event is about, and then convert.
So let's shift. I know there's a lot of questions I could ask you. Ryan, let me ask you this. Let's give our audience a strategy, a successful strategy in terms of how to be an entrepreneur that's going to look at this opportunity that we're in. We're COVID right now. What is maybe 2 strategies that you would highlight in order to be successful going forward?
I mean, number one, you miss 100% of shots you don't take. Right now is the perfect time to take a bunch of shots, right? There are people that, we're on lockdown or, stay-at-home orders have been passed, but why not take the time that you're at home? And if you're really being smart about that as well, a lot of times they say that you work from home, you end up working longer hours or more hours are being worked for the job that you're working with or at. But why not take those same hours and invest it in something else that could be more enterprising for you, right? There's 24 hours in a day. If you're able to work 8 hours, why not take 3 or 4 hours every other day or whatever the cadence is and invest it in somewhere else? That would be my first thing. My second point I'd like to make is don't be scared. Oftentimes we are very restricted because of fear. Fear is really only what you make it. And right now, oftentimes I believe that now is the best time to take a risk because with great risk can bring great rewards. But guess what? If you don't take any risks, you won't have the opportunity to have those great rewards. Now's the time. Because if now's the time, then that means that the next hour is the best time or tomorrow is the next time. But guess what? If you wait too long, somebody else will do it.
Now, Ashton, from a corporate perspective, what are some tips that you would have people do in order to kind of map out how they can leverage some of their entrepreneurship opportunities that they've had in order to leverage it for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so if you think about it, being an entrepreneur is so critical because now you're taking resources from a corporation or a business that may not particularly be yours, and you're leveraging that to advance their business, but also gain skills. And so in what environment can you work on a multi-million-dollar project and it fail and you still have a job? I mean, regardless of how it failed, that is an experience that will be with you for your lifetime. But the power of that is that you'll be able to take from those experiences and then apply them to your own business. So think about it. If you're working in a consulting company, what you're doing is you're creating all types of artifacts and deliverables for your clients. They could be from strategy to IT strategy to you name it. And it's like what you're doing is probably in some instances applicable to your business. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I was doing when I was a consultant is what they would call requirements gathering. So you have IT analysts or analysts in general, and their job on the business side and IT side is to come up with all types of requirements, system requirements, business requirements, those types of things. And those requirements are then handed over to either an architect who can help to architect some type of solution for you, and then they're handed over to a technology person, usually someone, an engineer or a programmer. And then they come through various iterations until you have your end product. The issue is that with a lot of companies, they do not have good requirements at all. They're actually quite poor. And so what happens is people are spending more money recreating work because the requirements are poor. And so for me, I became a requirements expert. I knew how to write a requirement in a way that if anybody saw it, they can understand my point of view and deliver it. And let me tell you how valuable that is. It's extremely valuable, especially with Ticket Falcon when you're dealing with something so complicated. What would it look like if we had, let's say, event organizer A and then event organizer B, and then somehow we got their payments mixed up, and so they were just swapped? I mean, that would be horrible. But that could happen depending on how you write a requirement. And so for us to be able to deliver what we do with our platform is really because of the knowledge that we've acquired over the years. And I'll tell you, when it comes to SharePoint, what Ryan is doing on the automation side is what we've applied to Ticket Falcon. How can we automate the often tedious processes that event organizers don't want to be bothered by? And so you think about it, we're leveraging my requirements knowledge and then Ryan's automation knowledge mixed in and bundled in with our technology and business savviness. And that's how you get companies like Ticket Falcon as an example.
Now, I have one last question before we sign off. Now, there's a lot of sacrifice that happens as an entrepreneur, women, people who work corporate. There's long hours. Can you just both of you touch on how it's changed your life in terms of timing, family, interactions, investment, and what advice would you give to someone in terms of investing time and how to invest time into your dream?
Yeah, for me, it's really just been a time investment. I remember one time I went to Hawaii, and basically, Hawaii is on a completely different time schedule, right? But because of the way my business is run, I basically would be up in the middle of the night working a full United States day. But then when like Hawaii time came around and it was daytime there, I'd go out and hang out and stuff. So like, I find that I had to make the sacrifice in order for me to do what I need to do. I still need to actually run a business, and that might keep me away from certain things at times. But those that are in your life that are patient and actually want to see you succeed will be there for you regardless. So I found this has been pretty successful for me still to run a business and still have like a life outside of it.
Yeah, and for me, I'll tell you, so it's interesting. I think college was a great time for me, and I could probably speak on my brother and say it was a fantastic time for him as well. But when I left and went to work in corporate arena, and then I decided to go back to business school, I think it was at business school where I really understood the importance of time management. I'll tell you why. I had a full-time job. I was traveling all over the place, doing all types of cool things with the firm I was at. I was running my own business with my brother at the time. And believe it or not, I was in school. And then finally, I decided to pledge a fraternity with my brother. I pledged all that at the same time while still leading a gospel choir, because I'll tell you, see, there's a quote that's very popular, and I'm going to make it more popular. It says, service is the rent we pay for living. And I often ask people, see, we were in the church, I'd ask the church, did you pay your rent today? And so I'm not fond of individuals that don't understand the importance of giving back to the communities they serve. And so we do all of that because we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for others that helped us along the way, and we never forget that. So doing all of that meant I had no time. But what I realized is that everybody has the same amount of time. It's what you do with it that matters. And so if we were able to be more effective and figure out how we can best utilize our time, that would give us a competitive advantage. Because I tell you, a lot of people don't understand how to use their time effectively. And so that's exactly what we did. I learned through that entire process, pledging Alpha Phi Alpha, and then ultimately becoming a member, and then now a lifetime member of this great fraternity, to being a part of the 100 Black Men, to now serving on the board of directors for National Black MBA, to running Ticket Falcon, to having my own company, and all these different things. What I realized is that you prioritize, and you can't do everything. And that's the other thing too. We have to understand how to say no. And there was a period in my life where I said yes to everything because I didn't want to disappoint people. But here's the thing. I'm not, I want to be a Superman, but I'm not physically, I'm not him. I can't be everywhere at once, but that's why I have a brother. And so this is another reason why we have a competitive advantage, because what I can't do, he can. And what he can't do, I can. And so it's like we can be at two places at once. And that is a true blessing.
Good. And I think that's important because when you look at time investment, time management, I believe that even right now, this is a good time for entrepreneurship. And it's a good time to go ahead and explore opportunities. I'm going to give both of you closing statements here. And I just want you to kind of paint the picture of faith, purpose, and align that with opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I guess I'd like to say that we weren't put on this earth to worry. We weren't put on this earth to not enjoy the fruits of our labor and everything that we put into it. So I say that to say that life is really what you make of it. If you want to do something, there's nothing really stopping you from doing that. You might want to be resourceful or try other things, but imagine how you would feel if you thought about something or doing something and you ultimately got discouraged and didn't do it. And then a year later, you see somebody else doing that exact same thing that you thought that you wanted to do, but you didn't enact upon it. You know what that feeling is like. We've all been there. Don't let yourself have that feeling again. If you want to do something, go out there and figure out how to do it. And remember, entrepreneurship is about execution. So it's time to execute.
And for me, because you mentioned two words, you said faith and purpose. I couldn't imagine living my life, but not living in my purpose. And what that comes down to is one, and we are gospel musicians. We're we lead a youth choir. And so, I mean, we go to church where we have a faith, we're spiritual and all of that, and we believe in God. And one of the things is the ability to pray. And I'll tell you right now, I think COVID-19 has brought a lot of people together who couldn't stand each other, because you realize the importance of people that are around you. But a lot of that, I mean, it's a lot of prayer and a lot of having that faith. But I mean, if you can't see something, so let me put it to you this way, and this is what really got to me. Sometimes I think I have a plan. I really do. When I took that GMAT the first time, I thought I had a plan. Nope. I got the score back, and I was like, would you look at this? You know, and it's not what I wanted. But God had a different plan for me. He said, you're going to have to take that GMAT at least 3 more times until you get the score that you need. But it's my ability to, 1, to pray, and then 2, to have this faith, to know that at the end of the day, I have my story that I want, but God has his for me. And so what am I going to do? Continue to use mine, or go after what he has in store for me? And sometimes that's being in a place where you just can't see what's coming, but you have to have faith. And that's what entrepreneurship is about. I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen with Ticket Falcon. People may have not have liked the name. They may not have liked what we were doing. But what we found is that we stayed the course. We were faithful. We prayed, and we standed together in midst of all of the negativity that's out there. Because I'll tell you, there are some folks in our community who don't want to work with us. I don't get it, but they don't want to work with us. And so we put them aside and say, they're not a customer for us. And we go on to the next one, and then the next one, and you keep evolving until you can tell your story in a way that people are so captivated that they're like, you know what, I'm going to support you because I like what you're doing. And that's kind of where we're at. So faith and purpose. You got to always walk in your purpose and never let somebody try to tell you otherwise. Never.
Faith and purpose.
Let me stop. This is not my sermon. Let me stop.
Well, you know, I want to thank both of you, the Equity Twins, both Ryan and Ashton Clark. I know Mr. Clark is on the phone, so I just want to thank Mr. Clark for joining, the other family members who are here to support the Clark family. I want to thank all of our members from National Black MBA Association across all of our chapters, our network in New York. I want to give a lot of love to Chicago. This conversation we will have posted on our website and on our YouTube page at NYBLACKMBA.org, and our YouTube page, youtube.com/NYBLACKMBA. We want to thank you both for joining today's conversation. I encourage you to use Ticket Falcon. Our chapter is using Ticket Falcon. We are a believer of supporting entrepreneurs, especially when the product is good and the people behind it are even better. So I want to thank both of you for joining. I look forward to seeing both of you at Nationals in DC and in next year in Chicago. So that's going to be great as well. This is a part of the National Black MBA's Metro New York Chapter Digital Series. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Norville Barrington. On behalf of Angela Hamilton and the entire leadership of the Metro New York Chapter, we want to thank you very much for joining today's conversation. Be blessed. Have a wonderful evening.